Lake Powell is reaching a critical point. Water levels are dropping fast, and scientists warn we may be running out of time to save it.
The U.S. Bureau of Reclamation is now warning that Lake Powell may reach dangerously low levels, and the dam could even stop producing power just within the next 18 months.
It's hard to believe that one of America's most iconic lakes, once bursting with boats, house parties, and endless blue water, is vanishing before our eyes. Lake Powell, the shimmering heart of the Colorado River, is collapsing faster than anyone imagined. What used to be a desert sea stretching nearly 200 miles is now a cracked mosaic of sand, mud, and stranded marinas. From the air, it looks less like a reservoir and more like a wound carved into the earth. Scientists call it a hydrological countdown. Decades of overuse, drought, and rising heat colliding at once. The bathtub ring around the canyon walls climbs higher each month. The question isn't if Powell will hit Deadpool, it's when. And what happens after it does? Beneath the shrinking surface lie drowned ecosystems and a power supply for millions. The fall of Lake Powell isn't just a local disaster. It's a warning to the entire West. Is this nature's revenge, or humanity's greatest failure? Chapter 1. Lake Powell 2025. The Vanishing Giant. Once a miracle of engineering, Lake Powell is now a monument to drought. In 2025, satellite images showed its shoreline collapsing into shadow, the surface retreating like a tide that won't return. From space, the lake looks like a dying vein of water running through stone. Houseboats sit beached on cracked mud. Marinas stand silent. Canyon walls reveal decades of forgotten water lines. Loss carved into rock. How did the crown jewel of the Colorado River become a graveyard of dust? NASA's scans repeat the same story. Evaporation accelerates, snowpack shrinks, inflows can't keep up. What happens when the lake that powers cities and feeds farms finally runs dry? Could Powell, once the symbol of triumph over nature, become the warning we refuse to hear? In 2025, the water elevation dipped below 3,520 feet, the lowest since Glen Canyon Dam closed in 1963. Inflows across the basin sit below half their 20th century average. Heat waves across Utah, Arizona, and Colorado evaporate billions of gallons each month. This isn't a phase, it's climate change made visible. Economically, the shock ripples outward. Hydropower output has fallen by nearly 30%. Tourism sinks as boat ramps end in sand. As the lake retreats, long-buried sediments dry and lift into the air, spreading microplastics and heavy metals across the desert. Is restoring natural river flow the only way forward? Or is it already too late for a system that sustains over 40 million people? Chapter 2. Colorado River Crisis. The drought that won. For years we called it drought. Now scientists call it a permanent transformation. In 2025, satellite data showed losses severe enough to redraw maps. The rocky snowmelt, once a roaring pulse, has slowed to a whisper. Summers burn hotter, soils thirstier, clouds stingier. What if this isn't drought anymore? What if this is the new climate? A future where rivers die standing and reservoirs vanish without a fight. The West has been running on borrowed time, draining stores faster than nature can refill them. Lake Powell was our insurance policy. The account is empty. The 1922 Colorado River Compact assumed 16.4 million acre-feet per year. Modern measurements hover near 12 million and falling. Millions of people, farms and cities compete for water that doesn't exist. Hydrologists warn Glen Canyon Dam could reach Deadpool within this decade. Every degree of warming erases billions of gallons through evaporation alone. The haunting question isn't, will the lake refill? It's how do we survive without it? Chapter 3. Glen Canyon Reemerges. Ghosts beneath the waves. As the water retreats, a forgotten world resurfaces. Glen Canyon, flooded for half a century, rises again. Slot canyons, sandstone cathedrals, submerged caves, sacred sites etched with ancestral Puebloan petroglyphs. Walking a floor that hasn't seen daylight since the 1960s, you hear wind where waves once echoed. Teams rush to document newly exposed sites, rock art, tools, fossilized vegetation, before erosion erases them. Sudden drying triggers salt crystals and flaking stone. Wind strips protective silt. Without urgent funding, a generation of cultural memory could vanish. Ecologists watch dormant ecosystems stir. Cottonwoods sprout in old deltas. Beavers return to side channels. Migratory birds reclaim ledges. Yet the rebirth carries risk. Invasive tamarisk and quagga mussels thrive in unstable conditions. The canyon's ghosts aren't haunting us. They're reminding us what we drowned to feel powerful. Chapter 4. Glen Canyon Dam Power Crisis. The energy below. Beneath the desert quiet, turbines that once roared are going still. The concrete heart that turned the Colorado into Lake Powell is starving. Levels have fallen so low that intake towers gasp. Engineers call it approaching the penstock line. For everyone else, it means lights could dim across the southwest. Each foot of lost elevation means less electricity. Near 3,490 feet, the turbines stop entirely. Rural towns and tribal communities that rely on low-cost hydropower face spiking bills and rolling brownouts. Emergency fixes, floating intakes, pump-back systems, solar hybrid microgrids can buy time, but not water. Without significant recovery, all 8 turbines could shut down before 2030. Do we spend billions to keep them alive, or let the canyon breathe again? Chapter 5. Colorado River Erosion, 2025. The river's revenge. After 60 years behind concrete, the river is fighting back. As Powell recedes, decades of silt, clay and gravel begin to move. The reservoir shifts from storage basin to conveyor belt, reshaping deltas and clouding habitats far downstream. From the air, the reborn river gleams like a silver scar, cutting through the ghost of the old lake. For the first time in half a century, Glen Canyon hears rushing water again, wild and defiant. The sediment surge increases turbidity and alters water chemistry from Height to Lee's Ferry. Chaotic? Yes, but it can also restore starved nutrient cycles, even as collapsing slopes and flash flood mudflows add danger. Some advocate a controlled decommissioning of Glen Canyon Dam to restore natural flows, wetlands, and fisheries. Others warn the sediment pulse could harm Lake Mead's water quality. Either way, the river is writing its own ending, and it won't read like an engineering manual. Chapter 6. Colorado River Water Rights, 2025. Politics of the Dry West. As shorelines shrink, the fiercest battles rage far from the canyon. The West is at war over water rights. Every drop carries signatures, lawsuits, and history. A promise inked in 1922 now tightens around a drying basin. Who owns the last gallon? California cites senior rights. Arizona demands equity. Utah, Nevada, Colorado, New Mexico, and Wyoming contest allocations drafted for a climate that no longer exists. Indigenous nations seek long-delayed recognition of reserved water rights. In 2025, emergency directives forced the lower basin to cut consumption by up to a quarter. Agricultural giants protested, cities braced for rationing and rising prices. Upstream, withdrawals still exceed dwindling inflows. In the dry West, power isn't measured in oil or votes. It's measured in acre-feet. Chapter 7. Lake Powell Pollution, 2025. Toxic secrets exposed. As Lake Powell shrinks, it doesn't just uncover canyons, it exhumes everything we tried to hide. Beneath the receding waterline lies a toxic diary written in sludge. Each gust of wind lifts the past into the air. Mercury, arsenic, pesticides, microplastics, decades of industrial waste and river runoff now exposed to the sun. The turquoise paradise of the 1970s has become a chemical time bomb. What happens when a lake dies and the poison breathes? Scientists walking across cracked mudflats wear respirators. The smell of sulfur burns the air. Birds returning to nest along the shoreline peck at heavy metal-laden insects. Fishermen report mutant-colored algae glowing under twilight. Could Lake Powell become the next Salton Sea, a toxic basin too dangerous to touch? We dammed the Colorado River to create progress, but in 2025, that progress is evaporating into dust storms, carrying invisible toxins. Are we prepared for the health crisis that might already be drifting across the Southwest? Core samples taken in early 2025 by the US Geological Survey and the Utah Department of Environmental Quality revealed alarming concentrations of methyl mercury, lead, arsenic, and nitrate fertilizers embedded in Lake Powell's exposed sediments. These pollutants, once sealed beneath hundreds of feet of water, are now oxidizing and becoming airborne during high wind events that sweep across Page, Arizona and Height, Utah. Laboratory analysis shows particulate matter laced with microplastics originating from decades of recreational boating, fuel residues, and upstream wastewater discharge. Public health researchers from Arizona State University warn that fine dust emitted from the dry lake bed can travel hundreds of miles, potentially affecting respiratory health in communities around Flagstaff, Grand Junction, and the Four Corners region. Local hospitals already report upticks in asthma and allergic response cases linked to elevated PM 2.5 levels. Environmental advocates urge immediate containment measures, stabilizing exposed soils with biodegradable binders, revegetating shoreline zones, and funding long-term monitoring through the EPA Region 8 Lake Powell Remediation Plan. Yet, every week, the shoreline retreats farther, exposing more of the toxic archive. Chapter 8. Lake Powell Rewilding. Nature's comeback at a cost. The desert always reclaims its own. As Lake Powell retreats, green veins crawl across the canyon floor where boats once floated. Cottonwoods rise from cracked clay. Eagles circle cliffs that haven't felt wind in half a century. It looks like rebirth, but is it really recovery? Or just the earth rearranging its pain? Viewers see miracle headlines. Nature returns to Glen Canyon, but scientists on the ground whisper a darker story. The new wetlands bubble with methane. Invasive tamarisk spreads faster than native willow. Mosquito swarms thrive in stagnant puddles left behind by the dying reservoir. Is the ecosystem healing or mutating? When the water vanished, life rushed in to fill the vacuum. Coyotes prowl dried channels, and rare beavers build dams where houseboats once docked. Yet beneath this spectacle lies instability. Soil salinity rising, temperatures spiking, microbes releasing greenhouse gases. Could this green comeback actually accelerate the climate spiral that killed the lake in the first place? If nature is returning, she's returning wild, unpredictable, and furious. The question haunting every ecologist: can we coexist with an ecosystem that's rewriting itself before our eyes? As they die, they leave behind flammable biomass that fuels desert wildfires. Soil microbe studies conducted by the University of Utah reveal surges in methane and nitrous oxide emissions as organic matter decomposes in oxygen-poor mud. These greenhouse gases amplify local warming, creating feedback loops that further dry the region. Ecologists now refer to the area as a transitional biome, neither lake nor desert, an unstable hybrid driven by climate change-induced hydrological shifts. Wildlife observations show mixed outcomes, bald eagle and osprey populations increasing due to open cliffs, while amphibians and native fish species, like the humpback chub, struggle to adapt to shallow warming pools. Conservationists are testing riparian restoration programs, seeding native species and reintroducing controlled flow pulses from Glen Canyon Dam to mimic natural floods. What looks like a miracle on drone footage is in truth ecological triage, life racing against chemistry. The rebirth of Glen Canyon may prove that nature always returns, but never on our terms.
Chapter 9. Lake Powell Technology 2025. Can innovation save the Colorado River? The machines are awake, but the desert doesn't care. Across the Southwest, engineers, climatologists, and AI systems are working around the clock to keep Lake Powell alive. Drones hum over the canyon, measuring every inch of shoreline retreat. Satellites blink in orbit, mapping evaporation hour by hour. Supercomputers predict the exact day the lake will reach dead pool. But the question nobody wants to answer: can technology outrun the climate? In 2025, scientists call it Operation Hydrologic Rescue, a collection of desperate experiments meant to stop the unthinkable. Cloud seeding jets scatter silver iodide across dry skies, solar desalination plants rise in Nevada, and AI water models recommend cutting whole industries off from irrigation. Yet the water keeps falling. What if technology isn't our savior, but our last illusion? For every billion-dollar fix, the sun steals another inch of water. Can algorithms reverse a century of overconsumption? Can satellites refill a lake? The future of the West is being modeled in real time, but the deadline is written in sand, and the sand is moving fast. Meanwhile, research teams from Stanford University and Arizona State University are testing solar-powered desalination arrays on the lower Colorado River to supplement irrigation for Arizona's Central Valley. Cloud seeding programs operated by Western Water Technologies have expanded across Utah and Nevada, though scientists debate their real effectiveness. Recent NOAA analysis shows only marginal precipitation increases.
Chapter 10. Lake Powell Dead Pool, the final drop. Some countdowns end with a bang. This one ends with a ripple. Every gauge along the Colorado River points the same way: down. By 2025, Lake Powell has fallen so far that the bathtub ring around its cliffs gleams like a warning halo. Each new reading from the Glen Canyon Dam tells a story of inches lost, megawatts fading, and time evaporating. What happens when the last drop falls below the outlet works? When the lake can no longer push water through the dam? That moment has a name: dead pool. At that line, turbines fall silent, power grids dim, and the once mighty Colorado becomes a trickle of memory. Could the collapse of one lake trigger a chain reaction that reshapes the entire American West? And here's the haunting question: if Lake Powell dies, does the dream of mastering the desert die with it? We built a monument to control nature, and now nature is quietly taking it back, one silent, shimmering drop at a time. Hydrologists from the US Bureau of Reclamation estimate that if Lake Powell's elevation falls below 3,490 feet, the Glen Canyon Dam's turbines will cease generating electricity entirely, pushing the reservoir into dead pool status. As of mid-2025, levels hover just above that threshold, with projections showing possible breach by 2030 under current Colorado River flow scenarios. Emergency response teams are studying dead pool bypass operations, a proposed system of low-level outlets that would allow minimal river flow to continue if the reservoir collapses. Meanwhile, Power companies prepare for hydropower shortages by scaling up solar and wind energy generation across the southwest grid. Scientists emphasize that the final drop isn't a single moment, it's a process. Glen Canyon restoration, the last reflection. When the sun sinks behind the canyon, Lake Powell glows like liquid glass, thin, fragile, fading. From above, it looks eternal. Up close, you can hear it breathing its last. Every ripple whispers the same truth. We were warned. For decades, we believed we could tame the Colorado River, bend it to our will, store it, sell it, and spend it like money. Now the bill has come due. What if this lake's slow disappearance isn't a tragedy, but a test? A final mirror held up to a civilization that built towers of concrete over water that was never ours to keep. As the turbines quiet and the silt settles, one question remains: to restore natural flow. But the decision will require courage, a willingness to rethink power, progress, and permanence. If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to join the growing movement tracking the fate of the Colorado River. Share this video with anyone who still believes water is endless, and comment below: should Glen Canyon be restored or saved as it is? Every view, every share, every question helps turn awareness into action. Because Lake Powell's final warning isn't just about a lake, it's about every drop of water that sustains our future. Stay curious, stay conscious, and remember, once the water's gone, the story we tell is all that remains.